So I wanted to talk about something that, in a way, involves everybody, whether you're in the beginning of your journey or you're close to the end of your journey. Some years ago in South India, at Arunachala, near to Ramana Ashram, where I go each January, we have a wonderful retreat there every January since 20 years now. And about 15 years ago, I noticed a very quiet man walking around with a black umbrella. It was, of course, quite sunny there. And he was always carrying this black umbrella, which reminds me of a kind of English businessman. So I was sort of noticing him. And then I noticed that he was very, very quiet. He never really engaged with anybody. He was always seemingly alone. And at some point, perhaps I went to him. I can't quite remember how it was 15 years ago. But anyway, I discovered that he was one of the first European disciples of Papaji, Punjaji, who was my immediate master. So we had, a very nice meeting. And at that time, I was working on putting together this book, Papaji Amazing Grace. Actually, I think I had about finished the book at that point, where I had, in years past, some 12 years before that, I'd interviewed people who came to Papaji and had a moment of self-realization. So it's quite a nice book. It was the first book that our publishing company produced. And actually this weekend, we're about to send to the printer my most recent book, Meetings with Remarkable People. A German translation has just been completed, and we're sending it for printing on Monday. And it turns out that in the 12 years since we started our press, this will be the 30th book in 4 languages. So it's quite amazing how we started off basically it was a kind of homage for me to publish this book of my master. And then we set up a publishing company so that we could do that. And then we started distributing that book. And then gradually, almost without noticing, over the next 12, 14 years, we have published altogether now 30 books in 4 languages: English, Russian, German, and Spanish. So this is actually, for a small group of people, it's quite amazing, actually. And so it's quite touching to see how, when you have a community, that the people work together, and then we can actually produce a lot. So anyway, I met this man when I had more or less completed this book. But as we got talking, I realized that he was a particularly interesting disciple from Papaji. And so then I interviewed him, and he has a chapter in this book. And he had met Papaji when Papaji came to Europe. I can't quite remember the dates when that happened, but he was living in Europe for some years. And Papaji would go to Switzerland to the retreat of J. Krishnamurti. And as I remember, J. Krishnamurti would talk for a few days, and then he'd take a break, have a break day or two. And on those break days, Papaji would sit under a tree and give his own meetings. And so this man that I met, he had come to one of those meetings of Papaji with his brother. And during the meeting, he'd been very touched. He'd come into a deep space of silence in Papaji's presence. And so they had started some kind of connection. And then he told me, well, often he would go to India alone, and he would stay with Papaji in a guest house. Usually that would be in Hardwar, in the foothills of the Himalayas. And they would share a room together for maybe a month in a guest house. And of course, from my point of view, I couldn't imagine spending a month every day with Papaji, and certainly not sharing one room with him. It would be a bit like, well, it'd be a bit like being in the cage of the lion, I would say. But anyway, this man had been doing that, and of course that had led to him becoming very, very quiet. And so his chapter is very interesting, and in particular, he was addressing something that really affects everybody. And that was that when he was walking with Papaji, he noticed that although Papaji could be absolutely quiet for long periods of time, for him, it was very difficult to not talk or to be really quiet inside. And so he asked Papaji a question. So I'd like to read it. It's about half a page. So I asked him, did you talk with Papaji later about your experience? I said to Papaji, you can stay in peace and stillness, but I cannot. Why does it come and then go with me? With you, I see this strength, love, and being perfectly at ease. My experience passed. I was thinking of the days in Switzerland. Several times in his presence, I'd been in such a state for an hour or more. Papaji answered, why do you say this moment comes and goes and not your other experiences? He meant my common experiences of uneasiness, of conditioned life. I called my states of peace experiences because they were short compared with the length of my usual life. But Papaji said, I don't call that experience. I call experience what comes and goes. So this is the first amazing teaching that very often with spiritual people, we have a particularly intense meditation, or just for no reason at all, we suddenly become very quiet, or maybe energetically something seems to happen. And we call that, oh, I've had a spiritual experience. And what Papaji is saying is that, in fact, all our life, everything that happens to us day by day is actually an experience, because it comes and then it goes. So he was defining that as an experience. And the short moments where everything is quiet, he doesn't call that an experience. He would say, that's your essence. That's your essence. That's who you are. And this, of course, was what I had felt meeting this man and seeing him walking around in the streets. I had felt something about him, some kind of quality I felt. And I noticed gradually that he very rarely talked to people. And he was almost invisible, actually. He was like the invisible man walking around the small streets near Ramana Ashram. So I'd often see him, but he was like, in some ways, invisible. And so I gradually came to understand that this was because a lot of the time he was simply being who he was, just being. And so actually, this points to the fact that our essence is always there. Our essence is always present. And actually, to come to our essence, we don't have to do anything. What we have to do is to have a quiet mind. What we have to do is not to be constantly thinking, because being constantly thinking, we get easily then identified with the thoughts. So I said to Hans, I said, so Papaji wanted to say that the periods of disquiet were coming and going, and there was something fundamental that was always present. And then Hans answered, yes, He wanted me to see this is your nature. It doesn't come and go. The other things that are adopted by culture, environment, and whatever are what come and go. And then I asked him, would you say there was an awakening in those years with Papaji? Do you remember a particular time when you realized that you were mostly in the experience of peace, and it was only rarely that you would fall out of this peace? And then he answered, in Papaji's presence, I found it easier and easier to be at peace. I also felt that I should not be like a sheep running behind him. I should digest this and get this strength myself. So after about 2 or 3 months of being with him intensely, I would leave. Then after 4 years, I felt, I feel so good. So then I was asking, when you say you were feeling so good, do you mean the mind was quiet and you were feeling clear and peaceful? Not totally, but always relatively. When you were in Germany, could you still maintain that? So I was interested that I could imagine that when he was going for a walk with Papaji every day and they were eating their meals together, sharing a room together, that in this profound silence or profound being of Papaji, he, if you like, could sink into that same space. But then what happened when he went back to Germany after some time, after two or 3 months? What happened then? No, I couldn't do it either continuously with Papaji, nor when I was alone, nor when I was in India. I couldn't because I had the wrong idea of having to maintain it, as if it is something one has to hold on to with effort. Rather, it comes in the moments when effort subsides. So this misunderstanding is what Papaji mainly helped me with. So this is also very beautiful, you see, another very profound teaching that came out of this time they had spent together, because Hans was having the idea that many, particularly meditating people have, which is you have to do something. You see, you have to do something. But when you start to realize that your essence is actually what it's all about, and this essence, of course, is always present, it doesn't come and it doesn't go, it's always present. So when you come to realize that, and you come to realize that all the other things in your life, all the meetings with friends, with family, all the busy jobs we do from Monday to Friday, maybe sports at the weekend or leisure at the weekend, all these many experiences we have, of course, these are what come and go. Yeah, it's as if you are in the cinema. So when you come into the cinema, you sit down and probably you look up, there's a silver screen, a big silver screen in front of you. And then the lights are dimmed and they turn on the projector and the film starts. And then after some longer time, the film is finishing, and again, the lights are turned up, and again, you're aware of the silver screen. So this silver screen was always present. And onto this screen was projected many different movies. Every week, maybe, there would be a different movie. So one week it would be a comedy, another week it would be a kind of a tragic film, adventure film. So always there would be something happening which would be coming and going, but all the time the silver screen, week after week after week, the silver screen would still be there, always present. So this is a very profound way to realize truth, you see. And actually, it's not really difficult. If you see where I'm pointing to, it's not really very, very difficult, because what I'm saying is your essential nature is already truth. So you don't need any big efforts for that. The big effort is to stop trying to do something. It's kind of the kind of paradox that in our lives we've been so much taught to do things that when we come to something like becoming peaceful, becoming self-realized, becoming to our essence, the most beautiful thing that's possible in your life, naturally you think, well, I have to make a big effort for that. And in one way, you do have to make a big effort. But in another way, and this is a kind of paradox, but in another way, you don't have to make any effort at all. And in fact, any effort you make is actually in the way of you realizing your own essence. So I don't know if anybody would like to respond to what I've been saying. Somebody like to, okay, Victoria, you just click on your little red mark. Can you help her?
Yes, Victoria, on your screen should be a message, turn on microphone, and you just click that button. Yeah, genau.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you hear me, John David?
Yes, I hear you. Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to hold on to this silence inside when I'm alone. I just felt it when we are in Zoom. It's easier to get to this silence in me. It's really remarkable. But when I sit in my room and try to meditate and to calm my mind, it's difficult. I only can watch my turning mind. You see,
Right.
and yeah, and
well, you see, this is of course interesting, because one of the lessons that come out of this passage of Hans or the story of Hans and Papaji is that, you know, he met him first of all under a tree in Switzerland, and he would have been giving a meeting, and he would have been giving a teaching, and during that meeting, Hans had been very touched. By touched, I think he would mean that he became very silent. So maybe during the meeting, there would be periods, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, where he would just notice that he would become very, very quiet, and that there were really no thoughts going on. And when there are no thoughts going on, then basically, suddenly the screen is there, if you like. The silver screen suddenly appears. You know, your essence suddenly appears. You don't have to do anything, because it's always there. But most of the time, it's covered up because we're constantly in our movie. You know, we're projecting a movie all the time. So you say, well, you know, when I sit by myself, it's not so easy as when I'm on this Zoom contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, this is why I'm doing this Zoom, because you know, this Zoom meetings came out of what happened with this virus, that we're all a bit stuck at home, or a few months ago, we were all stuck at home. And so then I read about the Zoom and I gave it a try. And one of the things that was very profound was that somehow the meeting between myself and the person, in your case, like now, this meeting is very profound. It's very energetic. And I realized that people are getting a better benefit from that than they've been getting from my other meetings. I'd been, for, I don't know, maybe 12 years, I had been transmitting through the internet meetings. And people could come into the meetings and talk to me.
I see.
But the quality of the meeting was very, very different somehow. So I was completely amazed to discover that. And that's why now every 2 weeks I'm offering this meeting. And so, you know, in my case, when I came to Lucknow to Papaji's Satsangs, I would go and sit every morning in a meeting. And normally I wasn't planning to really say anything. I did, in fact, ask some questions, and out of these questions, some kind of intense meeting happened between myself and him. But basically, I was sitting in his meetings and getting the same benefit that you're now saying you get in the Zoom meeting with John David. So basically, this is because a lot of my time, not all my time, but a lot of my time, I'm actually just being the silver screen, you know? There's not such a lot of movies going on. Of course, sometimes there is. Something happens, and sometimes there is a movie going on. And then the movie stops, and then the screen, if you like, appears again. So compared to, say, 20 years ago, I could say that now my life is much more the screen and only a little bit of coming and going. 20 years ago, I already had contact to the screen, but it was not as often as I have it now. So we need some sort of, how can I say, we need some sort of practice, you could say. And actually, that is one of the strong reasons to actually have a spiritual master. So in my case, I spent many years with one master. Then after he left his body, after I could say, well, thank you very much, you taught me lots of things, I then moved to another master, and I was expecting that he would also teach me lots of things. But in fact, with the second master, I didn't know it, but actually I was ready that I didn't really need any teaching. I didn't know that. How do you know that? How do you know, it's like when you're driving a car, you have a driving instructor and you say, okay, I have 20 lessons, yeah? But you don't really know when you're ready to take the test, because you don't know when you can really drive the car, if you understand me. So it was a bit like that. I didn't really know how close I was to really understanding. I had no idea. Well, I did have some idea, actually, due to some happenings in my life. I did have some idea. But when it really happened, I was completely shocked to see how simple it was. So you were in my recent meeting. We had this Sangha meeting, yeah? I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And in that meeting, I had asked people, well, do you really want to be free? And almost everybody said, yes, I really want to be free. And so after that meeting, I did something really, really terrible, because I wrote a mail to all the people from the meeting saying that, well, if you really, really want to be free, the best thing you can do for yourself is spend time with John David, come to his retreats. And some people felt that I was somehow making a pressure on them. But actually, this is how it is, unfortunately. When you're in the beginning of your journey, then this help, which I had got from my 2 masters, is now something I can offer myself in my life. I can offer this to other people. And you're saying, well, you feel you get this help in the Zoom meeting. So that's really wonderful. Perfect.
Mm. Thank you.
But these retreats that I offer are very wonderful because, well, you've been to the one in India for 3 weeks, so you know that in that intense energy field, which happens when you have a group of people together. I just came back now from the one in Tripelia in Ukraine. We had 21 people, and over the 2 weeks, in the beginning, it's always a bit rocky, but by the end of the retreat, there was such a beautiful energy. We'll publish some of the pictures later on the website. You can see the pictures. So this is something that just happens with all the people. A kind of energy field is created, and then everybody gets the benefit of that energy field.
Mm.
I remember meeting a friend, meeting somebody who became a friend in India some years ago, and he told me how he had met his master, been searching for a master, and then he'd been traveling through India looking for a master, hadn't really found anybody, come back to California, San Francisco, and then one night in mysterious circumstance, he'd been taken to a meeting, came into the house, and there was a spiritual meeting about to start. And he sat down in this meeting, and then an Indian master had appeared and sat in front of the meeting. And as soon as this man sat down, he realized, this man is my master. You see, it's like something happens. It's a bit mysterious, really. So he recognized that this man is my master, and he had actually been about to give up his spiritual life and go back to university and study something. So anyway, the next day he called up his family and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going off for some time." He sold his car, emptied his bank account, called up his girlfriend and said, "Well, darling, I'm off for some time." And then he went off with this master. He followed this master. This master was rather a big master from India, and he was traveling through the world. And so this man bought himself a ticket to wherever he was going and carried on following him. And then he told me that at a certain point, when he would have shown this master, well, I'm really, really interested, when he would have made the master realize that here's somebody who really wants to get this. The master called him in one day and said, "Well, I have a health problem, so I need to have an oxygen cylinder always nearby. And I'd like to offer you the job of taking care of this oxygen cylinder." So my friend, of course, was very touched from that, because it meant that he was always around this master, always some meters away, taking care of the oxygen cylinder and probably carrying it from country to country, on the plane and so on. But this would have been the excuse of the master to invite that man to come closer, because he would have realized that he is somebody who is really interested. He was a rather intelligent man, and he probably recognized that here is somebody who could get this, who could really wake up. And of course, I'm doing much the same by having a community. I've now lived in a community of spiritual people for, I think it's about 16 years now. So these people who've chosen to live with me, they are realizing the value of this energy field. So, Ole, okay. Ole has just come to our community a few days ago, but I haven't actually said hello yet.
Yeah, hello. So I'm sitting just down in the courtyard, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it touched with me what you said about this movie. And yeah, as you know, I stayed with my parents in the countryside for the past like 6 months. And it has made it much easier to yeah, see this movie being played out, because there's so little happening, and yeah, at times it's quite boring too, but it's very helpful when there's not so much going on. So I mean, then I just have to accept what is there. And I also feel something similar coming here, that there's like lots of kind of old movie clips coming up from previous visits to the Open Sky House. But yeah, I mean, I can also see that they are, yeah, I mean, they are sort of movies, and they are fine as they are. But it's, yeah, it feels like I need to just return to silence, and from that silence, it doesn't really matter how the movie plays out.
Yeah, it's good when the movie plays out, and then you're left with the screen.
Yeah, and it's also, yeah, I mean, it's just what attracts me. It's less attractions to, like, being less attracted to the movies going on, and it's just like it doesn't feel like it's worth it not to be connected to this silence. Yeah.
Right. And when you were in Norway in the countryside, you say you were with your parents. Are your parents fairly quiet? There's no family drama going on.
Yeah, not much. I mean, there's some drama. It's how it is, I guess. But they are very quiet people, because I mean, they lived isolated in the countryside for like 30 years, and they just tend the garden and do, you know, stuff around the house. So yeah, I can also see that it's also part of my background and my sister's background, how we grew up. And I mean, when I was a child, I was kind of shocked the first time I realized like all the kind of drama that is going on in the world and in the families and so on, because I was not really used to all these dramas. Yeah.
Your family was pretty quiet when you were a kid. It wasn't so dramatic.
No, I mean, yeah, there's some, but it's like really used to see that, okay, this is some drama, and then it passes to, and it's just very consistent, I guess, just like life going on.
Yeah. So have you come from the countryside to come now to the community? You haven't been teaching in between?
No.
All right. The schools in Norway are not functioning at the moment.
It's still school holiday at the moment.
Right. Okay.
So, but actually, my plan was to travel to Asia for maybe half a year and volunteer as an English teacher. But now I can't travel, it seems. So it's a bit up in the air what will happen. Yeah.
You were going to travel, you say?
Yeah, I plan to travel to. Okay, yeah, I plan to travel to like India or Thailand to live like. I mean, I did it before in the Himalayas with Tibetans, to live there for some time and teach English.
I see. Right. Teaching. Yeah. Right. But that's not maybe at the moment.
No, it's not. So maybe it will open up later. Yeah. I mean, at the moment, it's fine also to stay in the countryside.
Just one moment. Can you arrange it so he becomes the screen? Because I'm looking at myself, which is getting boring. I'd rather look at Ole. Can he be on the screen? Whoever's talking, then I prefer them to be on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Is he on the screen for you now?
No, he's not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
This Zoom is not so easy.
Okay.
Whoever's speaking, I would like them to appear on the screen so I can see them more closely.
Yeah, so it should be. Give me a second. I think I.
You have to maybe cancel this. It's always me. It would be much better if whoever talks. So maybe you could talk a bit earlier and we can just do a test if you now appear in all your glory.
Yeah. I'm talking.
No.
No.
We'll have to do another test. It's, for some reason you don't appear.
Yeah. I appear like, yeah.
Okay, now you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Will everybody else be there now? Okay. Okay, now we got you. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I realized is the importance of all your surroundings and being in a quiet and kind of supportive environment. It's so different from living, even though I live kind of a quiet life, also in in a normal society, but it's something different when you're in a really quiet place. Yeah, and it's like it's much easier also when there's yeah.
I was going to say, well, it can be good that the surrounding outside is quiet, like being in the nature, walking in the forest. That can help us. But actually, the quiet that we're talking about is inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that can be supported by, being high up on a mountain, maybe walking in a pine forest. It may well be that it's very quiet, and that helps us to come to our own inner quiet.
Yeah, and also this when you sort of feel that, well, it's easier to stay there for a longer, or like being quiet for a longer time, because it's not such a huge difference between achieving this either quiet through meditation or something, and then doing something else. It's more like a flow, natural flow. So it's not so much coming and going in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's nice you're here. We'll have a tea later, maybe.
Yeah.
Are you staying some days? Is it a quick visit, or are you here for the rest of your life?
Yeah. Who knows about the future? 1 week is my plan.
1 week. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Would somebody else like to come through? There's one or two people I think I don't know so well. Yorit, I think I do. I'm not sure if we've spoken before. And Suzanne, I don't think I know. I know Edwin, but probably not on Zoom. Any of you like to come through? Just click on that little red button.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was there last time, and I'm planning to come to Hittorf in October for the silent retreat.
Oh, good.
And if it's so easy as you describe it to let go and just do nothing and find the essence, why are so few people doing it?
Well, I think it's because we're so busy with our movies. We're so busy with our everyday movie. It's not something maybe that we did to ourselves. It's more as we've grown up from being a little child, it just happened to us, in the society, from the school, from our parents. Later on when we go to study, maybe when we go to work, this is just a natural thing that is put onto us, you could say. So inside, everybody has the silver screen, but over the silver screen, there is a constant movie going on. We call it my life. you know. And in my life, we have all kind of actors. Yeah, we have grandma, we have mummy, we have auntie, we have our son, we have a whole bunch of people who are close to us. We call them family. And then we have another bunch of people who are not quite so close, but we call them friends, and so on. You know, then we have colleagues and so on. So all these people are playing their roles in our movie. It's not so easy to see this because this is called normal life. You know, if you start talking to your friend in a coffee shop like this, they'll tell you, are you okay? You know, have you been taking drinking something wrong or something? You know, because everybody is completely conditioned. You know, we're absolutely conditioned in some way. You know, every individual has a different conditioning, but every individual has a lot of similar conditionings. You know, if you come from France, you know, for example, you have certain attitude about cheese and wine and bread. You know, it's like part of being French. Everybody has that. So you know, different nationalities have different qualities than another nationality. For example, in Japan, you know, rice is a big story. You know, for example, and so on and so on. But essentially, we have pretty much the same kind of drama going on. And when we look around, we call this life. This is normal human life. And if you see somebody like my friend Hans walking around with a black umbrella, not talking to anybody, and being almost invisible, you probably say to yourself, well, he's a funny guy, you know, he's a funny guy, he's an oddball, I better watch out for him, you know, better watch out for him. But when I got to know him, he was the sweetest possible guy, you know, very, very sweet man, actually. And I was really blessed to meet him. And I was pleased with myself because somehow I had the capacity to see that this oddball, the man with the black umbrella, he used to wear some kind of hat. Can't quite remember his hat, but he had a hat also. So somehow through his disguises, I could see that here is somebody who seems to be living in a very particular peaceful way, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I touched him in some way. I said hello, or I don't know how we got talking, but I ended up interviewing him. So in one way, it's very easy to see what I'm talking about. And in another way, it's almost impossible to see it. It's a kind of paradox, you know? Like when you go to the cinema, I expect you've been many, many times to your local cinema. You've been watching all kinds of movies over the years, you know, and probably you never noticed the screen. If I said to you now, well, you know, what color was the screen? You know, you'd say, well, I don't know, really. I didn't really notice the screen. I came to watch the movies, not the screen. This is the problem. This is why it's very, very difficult. There's a very nice English spiritual teacher called Tony Parsons, and he calls it the open secret. I think this is a very good description of our situation, the open secret.
Why doesn't everybody talk about it?
Hmm?
Why are there so few spiritual teachers? Why isn't it
There's
taught
quite
in
a lot of
school?
spiritual teachers, but people don't talk about it. I mean, if you go with your friends, you probably talk about what movie you saw on television last night, or you know, look at President Trump, look at the stupid stuff he did yesterday. You know, you don't sit in a cafe in silence. I mean, I do that, you know, like I have one friend, a particular friend I've known for, I've known him for more than 20 years. And he lives around the mountain in India, around Arunachala mountain, alone in a little cottage. He's been living there for more than 20 years. And we had a very profound meeting one time when I was with Papaji in Lucknow. I met him by chance, and then we spent a week together and had a very profound week. And he didn't really like me. He decided he didn't really like me at the end of this week because I was always talking, you know, and he was like very silent. So I was like traveling with a mosquito or something, you know. So by the end of the week, he had definitely had enough of me. And I noticed that, you know, our friendship kind of faded. But then a few years later, we bumped into each other near Ramana Ashram. And I remember he stopped his scooter. I was sitting in a cafe. And he said, "What's happened to you? What's happened to you?" And he basically shared that this noisy mosquito had suddenly become, you know,
Quiet.
very quiet and transformed. And so now we really like each other. You could say there's love, you know. And so, but I don't have much chance to meet him. So every year when I go for about a month to that little town, I always call him and we have lunch, and probably I visit his cottage, and there I get a cup of coffee or chai and a beedi. So, you know, every year I smoke maybe 2 beedis in his house. Yeah. And so this has been going on for years. And in our meetings, it's mostly silent. It's mostly silent. A few years ago, I would bring him my latest book, you know, I'd say, "Look at my book, you know, have a look, you know, it's a really good book." And now I don't even take the books because I know he won't be interested even to look at my book. Not because he doesn't like my books, but just because he's not interested in books in general.
Mm-hmm.
You see.
So you
But
meet
how
him
many
by
people?
being silent together.
Yeah, we actually meet through love, you know, actually, because when you're really quiet, then actually there's a lot of love there. It's not "I love you" kind of love, you know, it's not love affair love. It's like a deep meeting of essence, you know. So we can sit together in a restaurant and we can enjoy a nice lunch together, but I don't have to entertain him. He doesn't have to entertain me, because there's a profound connection that happens as soon as we sit down together.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, not many people live like that. And, you know, if I would ever go to a party, I mean, I don't think I can remember the last time I went to a party, maybe 50 years ago or something. But if I would go to a party, I'd be the most boring person in the party in one way. You know, nobody would be rushing to meet me because, you know, I would anyway probably be a bit vulnerable in the party, but I would never be one of these kind of party types, you know, who can go around the room and talk to everybody and, you know, make lots of new friends and all this stuff, you know, because I'm not interested, actually. I'm not really interested to make lots of new friends.
But you're interested in teaching.
Yeah, somehow this is my destiny, I could say. Yeah. Yeah, it's a kind of destiny. That's all I do, really. You know, that's the
Do you
thing
teach
that I've been
children
doing.
as well?
I would like to, but I don't really. I mean, I have 2 little girls of my own, 4 years old. So I hope in another year or 2 I can start to influence them, maybe get them to meditate and so on. But at the moment, it's not. You know, 4 years old, you can't really teach anything. But of course, they're living with me, and so there is some kind of conditioning happening. You know, they're being conditioned to be quiet. Actually, they're not very quiet. They're like 2 little volcanoes. You know, from the morning till the night, they're non-stop energy bombs. But also there is some kind of silence because I'm not really responding to their volcano. You know, I mean, yes and no. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, the answer to this question about why aren't there more people, I think people just have no idea. So open secret is a good description because it's available to everybody. But I would say, hardly anybody is really ever coming into contact with it in their lifetime. And very often it happens through some strong, for example, strong illness, an accident, relationship breaks down, or a job, you lose your job. Some kind of profound shaking is often necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what about you? I mean, how long have you had an interest in this?
Well, I went to a clinic for my depression last year in October, and I was living there in what you said, a really nice community where I could feel the community spirit. They were all trying to be achtsam, very mindfulness, and it was such a nice experience. I felt my heart open. And then I realized I lack spiritual belief or something, spiritual connection or something. So I'm looking to improve my spiritual life, which I didn't know I was missing in the first place.
Right.
And now I think it's kind of sad. Why didn't I do that like 20 years ago?
Well, you didn't have a depression 20 years ago. You probably were busy with your husband, traveling the world, or maybe you had some children, I don't know. But, we get so busy with all those things that it takes something like a depression and going in a clinic to suddenly see, oh, wow, there's another way. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming, you say, in October, but I mean, October's already 3 or 4 months. What are you doing in between?
I'm working.
Why are you waiting until October?
Because I have a life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay, everybody has a life. So everybody's actually, the real reason is everybody's too busy somewhere else.
Mm.
You could ask some of your friends. I mean, maybe you sit at lunchtime together with your colleagues. Ask some of them,
About the pure
and
essence.
they'll just look at you like you're a bit cuckoo, What essence? What essence are you talking about?
Okay.
And I mean, maybe not. Maybe you'll find somebody amongst your colleagues who, in their own way, has also come across this. And of course, when you come across this, you don't particularly broadcast it because you think, well, nobody's interested really. I mean, I've got a funny destiny because, I'm constantly broadcasting the Zoom meeting, or I have weekends here, or I just had a retreat for 2 weeks. I'm about to go to Spain and have another retreat. So this is like a constant life I've had for the last 24 years, I think. I don't know exactly why it happened like that, but I can't really stop now, I think. It's a strong destiny, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You'll have to get a copy of the book we're publishing tomorrow. It's unfortunately, I don't know the German title. They've changed it from the English title. It's a bit different, but it's a very, very nice book. Probably we get it back in about a month, and then I'll bring it to the Zoom. It's a beautiful book where I interviewed 10 very interesting spiritual people, most of them spiritual teachers, about their life. And I think it's pretty amazing, amazing stories. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're not so depressed anymore?
It's getting better. I'm taking medication, so this is getting me down, not so active and running around. Yeah.
Right. But you're still working?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is okay.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, we'll meet in October. Probably we see you on Zoom before it's over, but yeah. Okay, nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Somebody else like to talk a bit? Another 20 minutes? How about you, Susan? You've just had a relationship breakup or breakdown, yeah? Would you like to talk to me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You know, this lady we were just discussing what it takes to start being more interested in our essence. And I think your situation where quite a long relationship has broken down, that is quite a common way that people start looking deeper inside. And probably at the moment, you're still in the emotions of the breakdown, but maybe later you'll be able to look back and say, wow, I'm really glad my husband left me. And you can't say that now, of course. I mean, I understand.
So I'm kind of shocked at the moment. It's 4 weeks ago that he left the apartment. So and we don't have contact at the moment.
Right.
And I didn't phone or get in contact, and I just look for myself. What is the next step where I can go? But I sleep very badly, and it takes time to accept. And yes, I'm not sure what is the next step. I lost myself a little bit the last months, and
well, I think it's normal that you would lose yourself a lot, of course, because I think you were 12 years together,
13 years.
Yeah, so it's a long time actually, and so you know when you have your daily movie and your husband has his daily movie, and then you meet and come together, and then you have your daily movie as a couple. That's a very strong situation actually for everybody who is in a long-term relationship. And I think there's no way that this kind of breaking up or breaking down it's bound to be emotionally painful. I mean, I can understand you can't sleep and you don't really know what your next step is and so on. So this is normal, you know. I think it's normal that you feel very disturbed. But don't you find it interesting that one of the steps you're doing, I mean, I don't know what else you're doing in your life, but you've chosen to come to the Open Sky House, I think 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah, but I have traveled a lot in my life. When I was younger, I started with 25. I went to Denver, Colorado. I worked there on a project called Habitat for Humanity as a volunteer. And I learned so many people known there. And then I traveled a lot. I often worked only for 2 years, and then I traveled half a year. I've been in many different communities, and since 20 years I'm on a Buddhist way, and do a lot of meditation, go to yoga, need this quietness. I know this all since 20 years, and I like to be with people and not to live just for my own. But yes, the last 13 years we both lived together. We visited communities. We do mantra singing every week.
Right.
But now I have the feeling I can't be in our apartment, and I look to come to myself again and to get strong again, and I feel very weak at the moment. And I read a lot, and yet now I came today, and last week I was in the EIAB in Waldbröl von Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay.
I think you will know it.
It's an ashram, is it?
Yes.
I don't know it, but it's an ashram that he set up?
Yeah, he's not there. He had an apoplex 5 years ago, but the monks and the nuns are living there, and
Right.
I just wanted to go to one day on Sunday, but then they had a retreat, and it was called No Anxiety in Painful Times, and I thought, oh, that's that's good. So I went there. There were 100 people, and it was quite
Wow.
interesting what the monks and the nuns told. And but yes, I'm at the moment still in a shock. I think I listen to that, but when I'm alone, I feel something has. It's like I left my arm. My arm is away, or so. It's.
Yeah.
I have no idea at the moment, but the last, not last week, but the 2 weeks before, I was here, and I just thought I need a place where it is quiet, where I can do yoga, where I can meditate, where are nice people. And then a girlfriend told me, oh, I was there 2 years ago. It's called Open Sky House. It's not far from Düsseldorf. Have a look there. So that's how I came here. But the funny thing is, I went in and I saw these books from Ramala Maharishi standing there. And 16 years ago, I was in India, in Auroville, and I went to Tiruvannamalai. And I stood there, and the picture from him is always standing on my bookshelf. And it has inspired me so much. So I came here and the books were standing there. And
he has a habit of calling people, you know.
And Indira was there, and I found she's a very nice person. I saw the house here and I thought, oh, what a nice place. And now you haven't been here, but I have looked in your books, in 2 books.
Yeah.
And so I don't know really what is the next step.
I mean, I would have to say that, you know, you're not quite as much in shock maybe as you think, because all you've just been sharing would suggest you're not so much in shock, actually, that you have an access to what we were talking about before. You know, I talked about the screen or the essence. I mean, you have a good connection to that part of you, I think. And it probably is going to help you through this difficult time.
I hope so, but it goes in waves. At the moment, it's okay. 2 hours later, I feel so weak.
Yeah.
And I feel so depressed. And then the next morning I do yoga and I think, oh, what a nice place. Life is going on. Yeah, but
right. Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. I can understand it's a very, very difficult time. Yeah.
I love my husband. He's a nice person, and he had a very hard childhood, and I always listened to that. But he couldn't really give me the love what he has missed, so there were always difficulties.
Yeah. Right.
We will
the
see.
more you love him, the more vulnerable you're going to be, you know. So I'm sure you do have a profound love, and that love is also your love, you know. So
yes, but I talked to the nuns and the monks there from Thich Nhat Hanh, and I said, what is if I feel so emotional to him and I can't separate? And they said, yes, that's what you maybe also say. Love is free. You can't have someone. Everyone is a free person. But yes, when you are in a marriage and you have to arrange things, the other person is so close. Yes, you are a part of this person.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you also have a deep connection, you say you love him, you have a deep loving connection, then suddenly when that breaks apart, I don't really know the details, but maybe he left suddenly from what you were saying. You don't know, it puts everything that happened in 14 years, and you start to ask yourself maybe, you know. And so it's a very, very difficult time, of course, absolutely. And there's no way to make it any really less difficult time, except what you're doing. You're going to these Buddhist people that you feel close to. You've come here where you feel apparently quite good. So what more can you do? You know, you're taking already good steps. And as you have clearly a connection to your essence, probably, or I would say certainly, this essence inside of you is guiding you, you know? So maybe
yes,
that is more clear to you now than when you were living with a man in a relationship where you maybe had to compromise and so on. Right now, your essence is going to guide you, you know, like a navigation system. You know, it's going to tell you turn left, turn right. And you can trust that. I mean, that's the one thing you can trust, that guidance inside you that comes from a deep part of you.
I must admit, the last 7 weeks were so much happened. This hasn't happened in 2 years, what happened. But I couldn't stay in the apartment when he told me that he met another woman. I was so in shock, and I went out and I called a girlfriend in Bonn, and I knew she had a little apartment in Meerbusch, and she has broken her leg and she couldn't work at the moment in Düsseldorf. So I asked her, I've never asked someone if I can stay in his apartment. And I asked her, can I stay there for a few days? This was on Friday. And she said, yes, sure, yes. And on Saturday, she came with her husband. She gave me the key and she said, you can stay here, you can take the shower, you can take the balcony, you can take the noodles in the kitchen, feel at home.
Right.
It was so nice.
So what I'm saying is your essence, your own intuition, your own navigation system, which has always been guiding you through your life actually. And you probably know that since many years, because otherwise you wouldn't be so involved with Buddhism and so on. So you have a good connection normally. At the moment, that's completely shaken. It's like you suddenly gone into a gale, you know, a kind of shocking gale. And that's going to throw you around a bit. But basically, I can feel that through all this, you're talking about it in a very reasonable way. And your innermost, deepest essence is going to guide you to take the right steps. It took you to that apartment. It took you to the Buddhist people. It's taken you here. It will take you more steps on, you know?
Yes, many nice things happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, 2 weeks ago, I was here, I eat this very nice food. A girlfriend visited me here as well. We sit in the garden, and I had moments where I thought, it is too much. It is so nice. Right. In one hand, I have such a pain inside, and the other side was, what a beautiful place, what these people here are doing, and the meditation, the hall up there, this wooden hall. It's, yeah, many things which are so beautiful.
Yeah. Right.
So,
yeah. You see, so and then Ramana Maharshi's book was standing there,
incredible.
And so on. So
since 16 years,
I
haven't seen a book from him anywhere. Since 16 years,
right.
I came here and the books were standing there. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of benefits you're going to thank your husband for later, when you are able to be more, less emotional. You will be able to say, well, you know, you gave me a great gift, actually. You can't say it now, of course. But in the future, it can be that you'll see that what happened had to happen for whatever reason. And it's happened, and it's very uncomfortable right now. But given some given some more time, you'll have a different relationship to this situation. It doesn't help you that much right now, of course. But you can read some of the stuff that Ramana Maharshi is saying, yeah? This will also help you to read what he was telling, yeah? We have a beautiful, I don't know if you've seen it, but we have a beautiful book called Nanya, which is his main teaching. It's called Who Am I?
I've looked at
Nanya.
it, yes, a little blue book.
And we
Yes.
brought out a very special quality with many pictures. So on one side is a question and answer from him, and on the other page is a photograph. And just to turn those photographs, I think, would be quite powerful for you.
For myself, I found it very difficult. It was very high philosophy. I didn't understand everything.
Right. Well, that's okay. Look at the pictures. Look at his pictures. They're giving a very how can I say? They give you a very strong insight into him. You know, just looking at his pictures. Okay. Well, perhaps we'll meet in an hour or so and have a bit of a chat. Are you here for a few days? I don't know, maybe.
Now I stay just until tomorrow because I have to look in my letterbox. I have to arrange some things, but my idea was to meet the other people because they were in the Ukraine and you were in the Ukraine with them.
Right.
Just to have a look today and maybe next week or the other in 2 weeks or so. If it's possible, I would maybe come again, yeah.
Yeah. Are you working?
No, at the moment not. That is a big thing. I am a nurse and I have worked 10 years in a private, by a private doctor, neurosurgery. And we get in a fight. After 9 years, it was very difficult. He was very choleric, and then we quit. And then I thought, what am I doing now? I don't want to work in a shift hours anymore. I'm 56. I don't want to work in a hospital anymore. I have done this so many years. And my father died, and then I thought I go to palliative care.
Right.
And I applied there for a job, but I had to make another education for that half a year. And I have done this now. And I started on the 1st of May, I started this job. And after 10 days, they quit me.
Oh, yeah? But you know,
I've worked 6 months in an elderly home. I've never worked in an elderly home. And also I do this palliative care education. I have done this all, and I started there and I thought, oh, the people are so nice. The doctors there are so nice. It was an ambulant palliative care where you go to the people at home. And I said to my husband, it's a great job. It will be very good. I think everything is good. After 10 days, he told me, sorry, something has happened. Because you have already worked in the elderly home, you have only 6 months Probezeit, I don't know the experience. And it is in 10 days over, and you are not so good in computers. That's true, I'm not. They have done everything with computers. And he said, we are not sure if you can arrange this. And there was another woman, she came from South Germany. She had worked 8 years for palliative care, and she applied for a job. And I was sure they gave her the job.
Right.
So,
but, you know, but do you remember?
And then my husband left 2 weeks later. So I think I can also go into the Rhine and say, okay, life is over. I was so depressed. And now I think, okay, no job, no husband, no apartment. I will
Yeah,
see
but
what
see, this is
what
this is,
happened.
I shouldn't laugh when you tell this story because, of course, at the moment it's a tragic story for you. But actually, you know, if you trust your own inner essence, your guidance, your navigation, if you trust that part, which I think actually you do, even in these difficult times, or maybe particularly in these difficult times, that will carry you on, you know, it will carry you on. And it's amazing. You lose your job, you lose your husband, and
It's a joke,
you
huh?
lose the apartment, and
All in
suddenly,
8 weeks. In 8 weeks, my whole life has
right,
changed.
yeah. And as I say, right now, you can only take that as a kind of tragic part of your life. But it may be in the future, you'll look back and see, wow, you know, then I met Ramana Maharshi. And then I went maybe to India, and then I was sitting in his ashram, and then who knows what might happen, you know? You don't know the next steps, yeah? And you were saying earlier you travel through the world a lot, you've been to many different countries. So actually you have inside you tremendous, I don't know the right word, but you probably have wisdom actually. You have a lot of wisdom.
I have traveled
And
so lot, so lot.
out of your wisdom, you could come to our community and see that it's an amazing place, you see.
But now with this Corona times, I'm really afraid of Corona. A girlfriend of mine, she died 2 months ago. She had a Corona.
Yeah.
She had a very, very bad coughing, and then she was not a very close girlfriend, but yes, I have much respect from this Corona, and I don't want to travel
Oh,
at the
it's
moment.
okay to have respect, but you know, not to have fear. I give you a very quick my Corona story because for me it's been wonderful. So I came back from India in March when it started, and I'd been in pain for 2 years, and I needed to have a hip operation. So by chance, I went to a hospital in Cologne and talked to a young doctor, and I noticed the hospital was quite empty. And he said, yes, the hospital is prepared for the coronavirus patients, and we're not doing many operations. But I said, well, you know, if it's possible, I can come tomorrow. And then we got talking a bit more, and he agreed that if I stayed 1 week in the hospital, they would do my left hip and my right hip. So I got 2 new hips. Then I went to a rehab place for a month. And so now I don't have pain anymore and I can walk normally. So this is an enormous change in my life, you see. And this Zoom, which we're using right now, this also came to me during the virus time because I saw in the newspaper, I saw that many people now are using Zoom. I never heard of it before. So there's 2 big pluses. I just came back from flying to Ukraine. Nobody would go to Ukraine because they have a war in the east part of Ukraine. Yeah? So I flew to Ukraine and I took my 2 4-year-old daughters with me. They're on the plane. We spent 3 weeks together there. They had a wonderful time. I had the retreat. We just came back. And when we arrived at the airport, 3 days before we arrived, the government of Germany decided that when you arrive, if you want, you can take a test, corona test, and then they will give you a letter that says you're negative, and then you don't have to quarantine. So we had been planning to do a 2-week quarantine right now, but we did the test and we're negative. We're all negative. The kids are negative, I'm negative, all the other guys from our community, they're all negative. So somehow in this community, we have managed very well with the virus, you see, and I personally have managed very well with the virus. So fear is very important. I don't have any fear. I had no fear to go to that hospital. The hospital was empty because nobody wanted to come to the hospital. So I could get both my hips done. Nobody would fly to Ukraine. I flew to Ukraine. My daughters had a wonderful holiday there.
Yeah.
Trust is very important, and you have this to some extent, I think. Okay, I think we're pretty much, yeah, we should probably stop now. Anyway, it's very nice to meet you, and we can have a talk in the next days. Yeah, yeah. Good. Okay.
So I put the
You're
microphone
Suzanne.
out, yeah?
You're Susan, is that right?
Susanne.
Susan. Susanna, yeah, yeah. Okay, nice to meet you. Yeah.
I
Okay.
close the...
It's all right, no, you don't have to. I'm going to stop now. So anyway, thank you. We had another interesting meeting. I didn't get to talk to everybody. It was nice that Edwin, I see you're there, friend of Owen. It's very nice. Michael from Denia is there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.